All right, Gator fans, Neil Blackmon of Saturday Down South is back with us at Florida Basketball Hour, which I have been tuning into much more lately. I must admit, this is where you get the very best basketball content in the Gator stratosphere here. But thanks for coming back. I feel like, I don't know, maybe this is a good luck term. We got to keep doing it because it's working.
That's right. You can't change anything.
No, I am superstitious. I need everything to remain exactly the same. Have you recovered from that Texas Tech game on Saturday night?
Honestly, I don't think I had fully recovered until media, like there was media availability today. And a couple of us were walking in there and it was just like, yeah, never a doubt, never a doubt, and that was like, it was almost cathartic just to talk to Coach Golden again and have another game to talk about. Because until then, I mean, I'm still, I watched the game again. It's still so many things had to go right for them to win, and
Why?
96% win probability for Texas A&M with 3 minutes to play, and somehow they came out on top.
I mean, I think so. I was asked this question today, and I find it, I don't know. It was such an interesting question to me. I want to ask it to you. Do you think Florida won that game, or do you think Texas Tech lost that game?
I love this question, and I got asked it on a couple different radio stations today, and so that's the only reason I'm even remotely prepared for it, because the first time I was like, oh man.
Yeah, when I was asked it, I was like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
good question.
It is. It's such a great question. I think Florida won the game. And the reason I think that is because, not only did Tommy Houck hit the first three, they called timeout, they fouled the wrong guy, but they had a plan to foul and send him to the free throw line. They wanted to foul JT Toppin, who's not a great free throw shooter. And they accidentally fouled Darian Williams.
Right.
And actually, it wasn't an accident. I think Tommy was upset with the refs because he thought he fouled JT Toppin.
Right.
And they didn't call it. Then they called the one on Williams. But, I don't know many staffs in America that would even take that chance.
Yeah.
Like, they just might guard. But Florida hadn't been stopping pick and roll for 10 minutes. So they felt like we have better odds of getting the ball back, and the clock will be stopped if we foul. And it works the first time. Then Houck hits the second three. And then it works again. And then Walt, it's just big time shot after big time shot, plus a calculated gamble by the staff that works. Mm-hmm. And then you throw in the fact that before the second three, Alex Condon remember Walt missed, and Alex Condon got a huge rebound that he had to go get. As tough a game as he had, he went and got that rebound. And then Florida messed up on defense, but Texas Tech missed a shot, and then Chenyalu won the rebounding battle among three Texas Tech players. So, look, I think Florida seized that game. Did Texas Tech, could they have executed better? Sure. But usually when you see a comeback like that, Allie, it's like there's a press and there's a turnover that's stupid, or there's multiple bad play, like Texas Tech didn't do any of that. They only had one turnover in the last 5 minutes, and that came with 4 seconds left.
Yeah. Well, and for the record, that was my answer as well, was that I think Florida won it. And I think, this is such a, I don't know if folksy answer is the right or cliche answer, but I do think that great teams figure out ways to win when they're not having their best game. And I do sometimes almost think that I don't know, the ball has to bounce your way. Things have to go your way. There are these moments where you're like, oh, this is a championship team. This is a team of destiny. I know that is such a corny thought, but I do think sometimes you will these moments into happening, but only special teams, only championship teams are capable of kind of creating those moments, rising to the occasion. And for even more UF and NCAA tournament coverage, go check out BetUS TV. They've got great coverage, and I am so excited to see their coverage. Make sure you're following BetUS TV on social media. The Gators are a 2.5-point favorite, so let me know if you think they cover. I appreciate BetUS TV for all their support. You have to have such ice in your veins to be down that big with 3 minutes to go and figure out a way to come out on top. I mean, just the stress management skills,
Yeah.
that these guys possess was pretty astounding. How much of that game concerns you? And I mean, or does it not at all? Because truly at this point, it really is surviving and advancing. Whether you win by 1 or you win by 30, the outcome is the same, right? You get that
Yeah.
next game.
So they've got to value possessions better. And Todd talked about it today. Like the the fact that they had 13 turnovers in the first half of the Maryland game, and then probably played their best half of the tournament after the Maryland game,
Yeah.
but then came back out and didn't take care of the basketball in the first half of the Texas Tech game. They can't go out against Auburn, who kind of needs to score in transition the way they've played offensively late in the season. Um, you can't come out and give them easy points. So, Todd said today they can play better. He stopped short of saying they're not playing great, and he stopped short of saying that you know that they were worried. But he did say we can play better than we played. There are absolutely things we can clean up, and I think Florida's best basketball hasn't they haven't played their best basketball really since the Tennessee game in the SEC championship. So am I concerned? Not really. But are there things that maybe they can't do again? Sure. I think
Mhm.
that's probably how to answer it.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Auburn. We thought that we might get this matchup in the SEC championship game, and then it didn't happen. What are your thoughts, I guess, general thoughts on the Tigers through 4 games of the tournament?
That they looked like Auburn again the last game and a half. They too were down by 9 points in one of the games this weekend. They were down 48-39 with 10 minutes to go, little over 10 minutes to go against Michigan. Um, and they just found another gear, and they end up outscoring Michigan 39-17 down the stretch. The way they've defended is why I think they look like themselves again. When they clinched the SEC on March 1st, they went on this span from there until through the second round, where they were in the 90s in defensive efficiency. So they were really kind of struggling to stop anybody. But they survived the Creighton game because they played one good half against Creighton. So they had a scare too in the second
Yeah.
round. They survived it, and then I thought they survived the Michigan game. They played great against Michigan State. They got up 23-8. I
Mhm.
know that Michigan State made the scoreline respectable, but if you watch that game, like it was never in doubt. Like it was clear that Auburn was better. They were in control the whole way, and Auburn got a ton of defensive stops. So, I think they're playing their best basketball. What's interesting is that they're, and Todd said today, they're different than they were when Florida played them. Their rotation is smaller. They played 8 or 9 when Florida played them. They're playing 7 now. That's it. Um, and then they have to score differently because I don't know if Janai is obviously hurt the elbow. I don't know if he's been bothered by other stuff too. He had a huge game, obviously, in the first and second round, and again in the Sweet 16. But their offense right now has been Janai and Tahad Pettiford, and
Mhm.
that's pretty much been the show. Miles Kelly hits shots occasionally. Denver Jones can hit shots, but it's been those two guys. They're much more reliant on those two players to produce the bulk of their points than they were in February. So I think their offense has slipped a little bit, but they're playing the best defense they've played in months.
You alluded to the fact that UF and Auburn have played earlier this season. UF won 90-81. I don't know if you saw over the during the fall, there was a game day where Saban talked about how he would always rather be the team that lost in a matchup because thinks that the underdog has kind of an advantage, the team that was slighted, right? The team that lost. And the rest of the roundtable kind of told him, well, statistically that only works for you, Saban. If you back out and look at it, the team that won the first time is actually likely to win the second time as long as you remove Alabama from that equation. How do you look at that, and can both teams take away from the fact that they've already played, from the fact that Florida already won, or do you look at it like the tournament's another season. It's we kind of
Yeah,
wipe the slate clean, and none of that matters at all.
that's a great question. I think because Florida won there, I'm less inclined to buy into kind of what Saban's talking about.
Hmm.
Um, it certainly take Alabama basketball, for example. Like Florida won there, it helped Alabama 0 in the SEC tournament. In fact,
Hmm.
Florida beat them even worse on a neutral floor. Um, I thought Alabama played pretty well for a half, and then Florida's kind of quality showed.
Yeah.
Uh, like for Auburn, I think that there's going to be stuff that they saw on film that, I watched that game this week getting ready for the podcast, and I felt like there were certain things that Florida hit some shots that were pretty fortunate at various times. But Florida also led that game by 21, Allie, in
Yeah.
with like 8 minutes to go. I mean, the game was over. And Auburn kind of clawed and nudged the score back to respectability. So Auburn's going to have to play a lot better to kind of push Florida in this game. Not saying that they can't do that. It's the Final Four, and I do think it's a different season. But
Hmm.
I think Florida walks into this game. They're confident. It's a familiar opponent. They know what Auburn does really well,
Yeah.
and they know they had a game plan that was effective in stopping what Auburn did really well the last time around. So it's a matter of kind of replicating that. Of course, last year Auburn did avenge a loss to Florida in the SEC championship, but how much stock you put in that game at all because of the hand locked in injury, I think
Right.
is important to kind of bring up.
Um, Mentioning injuries, Janai left the Elite Eight game, Auburn's Elite Eight game, with an injury scare. He did come back in, but I don't know that anybody watching that at home, couldn't see that he was hurt, right? How much could him being, let's call it hampered, impact things?
A lot, a lot. I saw Alex today looked good. Condo walking around, no boot at all,
Hmm.
no wrap, looked fine.
Yeah.
Um, this was not that. Like, yeah, you're right. I mean, I know he made that kind of cinema 3-pointer that was amazing,
Yeah.
and good for him. But I think Janai, he was playing with one arm. Like he clearly was not moving the other elbow. Uh, and if it bothers him, I mean, yeah, that's a huge deal. They have two bigs. They're really good. I mean,
Yeah.
Dylan Cardwell, I love that guy. What a great player. Everything you'd want in your program. It plays his guts out. But those are the two guys they have down there. Florida already beat them without hand Lockton. So now Florida's throwing hand Lockton into the mix too. It's just a lot for Auburn to deal with. And if Janai is limited, you know, Florida already knows and did a good job of keeping him from getting to the right shoulder a bunch, making it harder and making him work really hard in the Auburn in the earlier game.
Yeah.
Limited Janai, they better have big games from Pettiford, Jones, and Kelly if they want to win.
So is that kind of an area that UF can exploit maybe the most? The fact that we do have so much depth, and Auburn already, as you mentioned, you talked about how they're at this point in their game, they're playing seven regularly. But if you're down Janai, your bench shrinks even more. Is that potentially the biggest area that has an advantage in?
I think it is. Florida was one of the few teams in the country that did not double um, Janai. And if I'm Todd Golden, I continue to do that. I continue to play Condon, Chinyalu, Han Lockton, whoever I can get on him in single coverage. And if Janai gets 30, Janai gets 30. What I'm not going to let him do, because he's such a great passer.
Yeah.
And I know you had Seth Greenberg on. He's one of the ones who I think did like nice videos of all the passes Janai can make. If you double him, he will kill you with
Yeah.
his ability to spray the ball around. And they have four shooters, right? They have four guys that have made 50 or more threes, and they all shoot 37% or more. So you have to sit on those shooters. And Florida did that really well in the first game. Auburn didn't shoot terrible. They shot 33% from three.
Yeah.
But what you don't want is them to shoot 37 or 38, right? And so I think Florida plays single coverage and they say, hey, we'll see how healthy he is. Um, and that's the gamble that Florida makes to try to get to the national title game.
What, where do you think Auburn has an advantage over Florida?
So I think just Pettiford has become so much more involved in their offense since February 8th. That's a long time in basketball land for a freshman. It's a long time in football land for a freshman.
Sure.
Um, I mean, that's almost 2 months that he's had to get better.
Yeah.
He is great in isolation. He's really quick off the dribble, which negates Florida's biggest on ball defender strength because the one type of guard that gives Elijah Martin trouble is somebody with a very quick first step who can just kind of blow by him. I don't think Florida will use Elijah to guard Tahad. I know Florida didn't have Elijah in Auburn, and a lot of people have been like, "Oh, now they get Elijah too." Yeah, that's great. I'd rather have him than not have him, but
Right.
I
But
think
not great matchup.
yeah, it's not a great matchup. I think this is more of a Will Richard, Denzel Aberdeen kind of collective guard,
Yeah.
and I would say that's probably their biggest advantage. The other thing was like Cheney Johnson, their junior college player turned kind of glue guy. He did not have a great defensive game against Tommy Houck, but his size, 6'7", 230, he
Yeah.
did bother Florida a little bit. And like they've got a couple guys like that are kind of wing type players, and Florida doesn't have a ton of that on their roster. So I would say those two areas are probably areas where Auburn can be effective, and Johnson in particular is great at forcing turnovers defensively, and that can lead to points, easy points.
I think a lot has been made of the fact that Bruce Pearl has been kind of a mentor to Todd Golden. And, we talk about the student and the teacher.
Yeah.
Is his experience just a huge advantage for Auburn in this situation? Or does Todd Golden's swag kind of make up for some of the inexperience?
Yeah, I mean, it's only Bruce's second Final Four for all the experience that Bruce has, and I think Bruce is one of the best program builders in college basketball. I think he's one of the best motivators in college basketball. He's never been known as like somebody who's going to X and O you
Hmm.
out of the building, right? This isn't Kirby Smart like getting a month, Kirby Smart getting 3 weeks to look at what your offense does. That's
Sure.
not what Bruce
Sure.
Pearl is. Um, and Todd has taken a lot of the great things that he learned from Bruce and
Hmm.
put them into his program, and he'd be the first to tell you that. But I think it's an interesting, when Patino and Donovan went head to head,
Yeah.
the thing that Rick always had over Billy was that he knew what Billy was going to run on offense because his teams ran it,
Yeah.
and Billy would always say, "My teams are going to be they're going to be in better shape than you." So in the last 10 minutes of the game,
Yeah.
you're tired and my guys aren't. Well, Rick Pitino invented your
That.
team is tired and my team isn't. So this is not that. There's not really any big scheme that Todd took from Bruce, and like Bruce did it best because he invented it first. And I
Sure.
do think that matters a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Who would you compare Auburn's preferred style of play to?
That's such a great question because, like, I don't want this to seem as a slight on Auburn because I love them. I think like I love watching them play. Um, but they remind me of 2014 Florida, like when they're at their best. The only difference is sort of they have a player in the interior who's super dominant in Janai,
Yeah.
and Florida's dominant scoring player on that team at least was Scotty Wilbekin.
Right.
So that's a little bit different, but it's just the collective sum of their parts is greater than any of their individual talents.
Yeah.
Um, and that I think is why I respect them so much and why I think they're such a fun watch. But Florida is more talented. Like
Yeah.
Florida will have more players play in the NBA. Tahad Pettiford will play in the NBA. Janai Broom will get a shot, but he's also 23, a little bit slow. Um, and
Might as well be 40.
well, I know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with his NBA future, right? I'd take him. He's a winner,
Yeah.
but Florida has more. Florida has more talent. If it's a talent contest, Florida
Yeah.
plays Monday night.
Yeah. Janai went to my high school, so I've been personally rooting for him to do well, but obviously for Florida to win. Before I get a prediction about this game from you, who wins the other game, and who should UF fans want to win the other game between Duke and Houston?
Well, UFN should want Houston to win, because then they don't have to deal with Cooper Flag.
And ticket
And
prices might go down.
yeah, they don't want to deal with Cooper Flag and the other NBA players
Yes.
on the Duke roster. Speaking of the talent
The
thing,
talent.
yeah. My favorite thing about this Final Four is that like it's basically three country boys that are the best players in the country. In Janai and Walt, you have like two kids from the country that nobody recruited,
Yeah.
and then and then in Cooper Flag, you have a kid from the backwoods in Maine who everybody recruited, but still, it's the same concept, and that makes it fun.
Yeah.
Um, but like Florida, Houston is a lot like Tennessee. They're not terribly prolific offensively. They do shoot the ball well, but they're the type of team that Florida has matched up very well with this year. In that they're small. Um, while their guards are real tough, they're all smaller than Florida's guards. Um, you know, they have a great coach. Kelvin Sampson is one of the best to ever do it. But yeah, I mean that's a much more favorable matchup for either the Gators or Auburn.
All right. It's prediction time. Tell me who you think wins Florida Auburn.
Maybe I'm like I have tried very hard not to drink the Kool Aid, even in
You do a good job being really unbiased, and I do appreciate that. That is something I personally struggle with. I'm like, oh, this Florida team's not that great, and then I ask for a prediction. I'm like, oh, well, clearly they win every game. You don't do that. That's a
well,
positive.
I have tried very hard not to drink the Kool Aid, but there's something that I've thought this week that has just and who knows, I could be completely wrong, um, but I feel like Florida's best game is still in them in this tournament.
Yeah,
I don't think Auburn matches up great with Florida. I think Janai will be okay. I hope he's okay. He deserves that.
sure.
What an incredible career he's had. But I think Florida wins this game by 8 to 10 points. I think it's pretty
Woo!
comfortable.
I
Um,
love it.
and yeah, I continue to think. And remember, I picked Duke to win the tournament, but
Yeah,
I think Florida gets to Monday night and plays for the national title for the fourth time in school history.
it's pretty freaking exciting if you ask me. All right, where can folks follow you and find your work?
Thanks. Yeah, follow me at NW Blackmon on Twitter, X, whatever you're calling it these days. And then Florida BB Hour is the podcast Twitter account. Listen to Florida Basketball Hour, subscribe. Yeah, and then all my work at Saturday Down South. There's a lot of writing, and I thought I wrote a fun column about what happened against Texas Tech, and just getting into kind of the backstory about this team and how I think the underdog mentality has continued to work for them.
Yeah.
And they're just a bunch of dudes that they don't have a single top 100 player on their roster, but here they are in the Final Four.
I love it. These are the kind of things that make lifelong fans, right? Stories like this
Yeah.
team, moments like this. I can remember, it's football, not basketball, but I was 12 years old when Florida beat Florida State in '96, and still have really strong memories from those moments. And that's what
Yeah.
creates whole generations of fans. Well, we appreciate it. This was awesome. I'm really hoping we'll get to do this one more time, but we'll see if the basketball gods cooperate there. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Allie. Take care.